Hi, I'm Dave and I'm not at GDC, so I'm going to make a video at home about our approach to workflow using Unity and tools. So first, a bit about ourselves. I'm the coder half of Bauhof. We made this game Crawl amongst a few other games, and it's just two of us primarily. Myself doing code, and then Barney, who does art, animation, and we both share a bit of design stuff. And we've worked together for a long time now, probably a decade, and starting off in like kind of like big studios, well, medium-sized studios at least. And we always liked working together because Barney's quite technical-minded, and I quite enjoy exposing toolset stuff to him so that we can get a lot out of his ability to sort of be able to actually put stuff in game, get stuff going, as well as like arting it up, animating it, and things like that. And so I'm going to talk a bit about that, how using Unity we've got a good workflow, which lets us get lots of juice in our games. The nice thing about Unity is it's kind of designed to let the scripts and the editor work together really easily. So it's incredibly easy to expose anything in this inspector. You just make a public variable. I'm not going to kind of go over the basics of Unity too much, but I'll just sort of describe how we use it. So say this is maybe a more complicated thing. It's a damage effect for a scale and a projectile. I can show you in game what it looks like. All the monsters and stuff, Barney tends to make all himself. We've got sort of the code base all there, and we're in early access still, so we've been adding stuff for quite a while. We'll sort of debug create this monster. So yeah, so this skeleton Pope guy, Barney would have created all the behavior for him without me having to do any extra code, just by sort of duplicating an existing monster prefab, editing a bunch of values that are exposed in the inspector. So you know, he's got a couple of attacks. This one's kind of got this sort of damage effect that sort of lingers around, and the hero has to run around it, and they've got a bit of like a homing kind of thing. And so this projectile here is, I think it's this projectile here, stop that, is what I've currently got selected. And so Barney would have just selected an existing projectile he had. He's replaced the sort of animation to be this skull kind of thing. Where is it? Yeah, this like laughing skull thing. And then gone through, set a destroy after time, so the effect will last 2 and a bit seconds. It's got an animation, another prefab, another effect to spawn when it destroys itself. Does 1 damage, and it's also got a damage rate, so it'll keep repeating damage. There's like a lot of stuff in here. Like this is after a bunch of years of development and lots of requested features and functionality. It's got particle motion, so that's basically like what makes it a projectile, and it drops this other projectile particle, which is the red smoke you see behind it, every 3 to 4 units. Yeah, and then I guess it's bouncing off the wall as well. Got a bit of bounce. Bounces off the walls and props. So that's like that's sort of the clunky kind of way that we usually do things. But now I'm going to show you a bit of a nicer way that we're sort of starting to do things a bit more now. As we'd sort of gone on in development. The game starts with this hero battle. You've got this like unique story every time you start the game, and 4 of these heroes fight each other. So I'll show you a few of these. I'll talk about what tools we use to make them.
Its dominion, and like all those before, would be consumed. Onwards now, into the void.
Just debug to show you another one.
Torrid Caverns,
so what's happening is there's
turn
down a bit. So what's happening is there's the scene loads. There's a bunch of data saying, okay, what sort of battle scenario is there? In this one, there's like a crashed cart, someone's lost a loved one, there's a dead horse, and they're sort of all scattered lying around. And then the narrator will kind of give a bit of an intro to the story. Start a new one. So there's quite a lot of narration lines, a lot of different poses for the different heroes to have, a bunch of different sort of scenarios, and then we sort of wanted to link some narration lines with some scenarios and not others and stuff like that. So kind of quite a complex system, a lot of little interplaying parts. Like, so in this one, say this guy's in the center's reading a book, and they're maybe doing a ritual. So the narration could be something to do with like a dark ritual or something like that. So there's a lot of data associated with this. There's the battle scenario itself, the hero different animations, hero poses that each battle might have. So some heroes might be in a pose which only makes sense in a certain battle scenario, things like that, and they might have to be in a certain position. So there's a bunch of data that needs to be associated with each hero pose, and then there's a bunch of data which needs to control how the narration works. So to do that, we had this sort of label tag system where any hero pose might have a tag associated. So the hero might be reading from a book, like the one we saw. Let's see if I can find that. So in hero poses, we've got chanting from book. Okay, so the hero's chanting from the book, and there's these narration labels: ritual, book, chanting, and that means that any narration lines that have any of those ones, they'll be allowed to play. So if there's a narration line that's mentioning reading from a book, that one will be allowed to play. And so as you can see in this inspector, I've got a few like sort of things I've set up to be a bit nicer. So when Barney's making a lot of these, it's a bit easier for him. So the first two things really is these headings. So there's like pose setup, which has got a few things under it, spawn areas, and when should pose be flipped. And then there's also tooltips. So if I hover over this primary thing, it'll say only one primary pose will be selected per battle, and that's ticked. So that means there's 4 heroes, but only one will have a primary pose, and this is a primary pose. So if someone's reading a book, the other ones will be kind of not doing anything spectacular, because it's about, like, this sort of story is about the hero reading a book. So I can show you. Okay. Yeah. So hero, in the hero battle pose editor, you can see where I've got the header for pose setup and the tooltip, only one primary pose. So that's the first really easy thing. Like, I've just got a bunch of public stuff because this is really just a data collection. And so that's all exposed in the inspector, and then, yeah, some nice headers and tooltips that make it easy for designers and artists to use. The next thing I'll show you is a custom property drawer. And so these let you take, say, something like a particular value type or something like that. So which would normally be one line in the inspector or something in the inspector, like an array or whatever, and it'll let you customize it to look how you want and behave how you want. So by default, this narration labels thing I was talking about is kind of really clunky to work with. I'll show you what the actual code looks like without the extra stuff. So I'll remove the custom property drawer for it. To show you what that looks like. So I wanted narration labels to be something that you could just type in really, really quickly, because there's going to be a lot of these poses and a lot of different props and things in these intro sequences, and so we want to, you don't want to have it be really fiddly to add them. So by default, narration labels are an array of strings. For each label is one in the list. And so to add, if I wanted to add reading or something, I'd have to, change the 3 to a 4, reading, and then it's just a bit clunky. So if I'm doing that like lots and lots of times, and I want to put, reading, and I also want to put, I don't know, sitting or something, then it's just like, that's pretty clunky to just like type two lines. So what I did is to create a custom property drawer, which I'll now uncomment. And this lets me in code have them in an array, which is what I want, but it also means I can have it look nice for Barney when he's editing. And so I won't explain exactly like how to set all this stuff up. Maybe I'll just put links to like the names of these types of things, because usually what I do is just Google custom property drawer or property drawer, and then like look at the Unity help, and there's just heaps of examples of that stuff. So as long as you know what to look for, it's pretty easy to find. How do I do it? And so this one in particular, there we go. So it's just like set out to parse into one line of text. So Barney can come in, type ritual. I think he can just even put a space. Maybe it's like not cap sensitive, so it's typed book and reading, comma, sitting, and then like I press enter, it formats it into the nice kind of array for me to read as in the code, but it's not also nice for Barney. So like he doesn't have to like click something, change the number, etc., etc. It's nice and quick. And so there's quite a lot of examples of things where it's just a little efficiency gain that's quite easy to add, but just like makes everything a bit nicer. Another one is these spawn areas. So these are pretty complicated things to set up. They tend to just be cloned from like each of the poses kind of clones the same one, but every now and then you want to specify it nicely. By default, when you have this, so this is just like using in code, it's just a pose. It's just a rect. So you've got one for left, right, top, bottom. Like pretty simple. Like it's not code we spent ages on trying to get it perfect, but by default, specifying a rect like that, rectangle, is really annoying. Like if I go to this debug mode, you can see the default. So yeah, you can see how the labels are kind of listed like that. And the spawn area, it's got X, Y, width and height, and X and Y is a top left corner, width and height is sort of this other, it is like from the top left corner. So if you just want to kind of bring it in to be a bit narrower, you've actually got to edit X and the width and things like that. So so this, I sort of pretty quickly made something so you can just like trim down the like centered position, also move it to the left by moving the set from the center, or like maybe I'll put it in the center of the screen or the room, and I want the width to be 60, so it's like 60 wide or whatever. So much easier to like edit, and you can also edit like the actual bounds, left, right, bottom, top. So and it'll update the center point and stuff like that. So that's a lot easier to figure out. And then a step further would be visualizing this using gizmos and stuff like that. Sorry, widgets or whatever they're called. What are they called? Gizmos. Gizmos, which lets you draw lines and stuff in the scene, which I've done for a few things, but for this thing that was enough. So yeah, so that's custom property drawers. There's loads of stuff you can do, really simple things, but it does make things a lot nicer. The next thing I'll show you is full-on inspectors. So here's one. So I've got this component called spawn group. Script. Spawn group is a list of items that have a chance to spawn. So this one's got all the different battle scenarios in it, and by default it looks like items, just this huge horrible list of items. And so I've created a custom editor. I'll see if I can find spawn group editor. Yeah, there we go. So custom editor. So that's what you'd search for. I'll write that down below in the comments, in the description, I guess, of the video. So a custom editor is basically when you've got a particular component and you want to be able to specify how it looks, the whole thing looks in the inspector, then this is what you'd use. So for this one, I've got it so there's a slightly nicer way of adding and removing items. You can also like drop objects at the bottom. So say I don't know, drop this narration thing down here, it'll add it to the bottom. And the other thing that's nice with this one is you've got these chances. So I'll remove a bunch of them so it's a bit clearer. So I've got 4 of these things. If I make them all have, it's a bit buggy, I think. Okay, yeah. So if I make them all have 100% chance, then 100% weight, I guess, then they'll each have 25% chance of spawning. And then if I tweak this one down, I'm like, oh, I want this one to spawn half as much, I can kind of twiddle it down, you know, with the slider, twiddle this one up to be more likely, and it'll show, you know, so it's a weighted system, but it'll show the percentage chance based on like the total weight. So that's a pretty nifty thing that we use quite a lot. We use that for basically everything, like props that are spawning when you break a chest, like how like frequent it is that you get just little gold pieces compared to like a big health potion or something. So those like weighted spawn groups are pretty useful for that. So yeah, so that's one component. Another one that's like a bit nicer was the one I used for this narration thing. So you've got all those narration labels I was talking about, and we've got all these audio clips. I wonder if I can play one for you. Hold on, that's the wrong thing. Just turn up the volume. Okay.
These men are animals, murmured
So
the
this one
newcomer,
will play,
regretting their alliance, however short.
So this one will play if there's a Mexican standoff tag, or if there's a ritual, or if there's a campsite. It won't play it. It needs like one of those. This one here.
Wholly lost, yet still he persisted with that infernal map. He may have deluded
So obviously this one's got the word,
but not all.
this one's got the word map in it. And so you don't want it, you don't want it to play when there's no map. So there'll be like maybe a hero pose where someone's holding a map, or there'll be a map on the floor in one of the rooms, and so it'll have that labeled somewhere. And so I'll know, like, okay, cool, it's all right to play this one. It's talking about a map, and there'll be a map somewhere on the screen. And so yeah, so this is a slightly nicer editor. Like, it's got sort of some nice slidey things. It's got the play button. It's got, I think, some, yeah, you can drag the audio clip here. So, and I think you can multi-drag them. So that made it quite easy because there's a lot of lines here. So it was like, listen to the thing, type in the labels that it might have, and then there's also I just like had a quick stats thing of all the labels that are there. So if I add like no chair. There's like one thing with chair in it. This one's also chair, so you kind of get a bit of an idea which tags are used and how much. And this again is using the same like list component thing, the same custom property drawer as the other thing. So it's sort of reusing that code. Yeah, so that's a custom editor. Next thing I'll show you is custom windows. So editor windows, sorry. So an editor window is like a full-on panel like this. It's not editing a particular component. It's like a tool you sort of, yeah, you completely build, I guess, from scratch, not based on like the actual components and gameplay stuff. So this one here is whenever I click on something in the inspector, it'll like add it to the top of the list. I can lock them so they go at the top. I can just like stick them right to the top. I can also, and then yeah, if I click one, it'll like select it. Or I can click ping, and that'll won't select it in the inspector, but it'll show me where it is. And that's one which I did actually like try an extension. It was just a bit clunky, and it's like, I might just have a go making that myself. And it ended up being pretty fun and easy to make. So yeah, I mean, in code, story, you just like inherit from editor window. So that's the thing you want to search for if you're working out how to do it. Search the Unity kind of docs for editor window. But basically, you create a menu item with show window thing. That means when you click up here in window, it'll have your thing here to select, and you can create it. So I've got quite a few of these. One thing that's good to do for a project is just have like a messy kind of tools editor window thing where you can just chuck stuff. So we had like this bug where with a third-party plugin, this animation editor, which is kind of which it's been really good, but also completely like the developers like left the face of the planet 2 years ago, and so we haven't heard anything from them, or there hasn't been any updates, and it's really old, and there's some bugs which came up because Unity's like changed so much in the last few years. And so I had this like magic super fix button, which basically just like rebuilds some database tables and fixes things so it doesn't break. I've got a palette builder, so you can drag in like like an original texture and a colored texture, and it'll generate a palette PNG. I've got like just a bunch of random things like this batch process button. I'm constantly like changing what it's batch processing, things like that. What else? Power balance. This is just like this. Because we've got a lot of data in all these separate prefabs, so we've got so we've got all these monsters, and they've all got, say, different, what's the value? They've all got a different evolve cost, or a lot of them do. What I want to be able to do is have a look at, like, edit all their evolve costs at once, so I can type in the variable name evolve cost. Click find, and all the things that are selected will find. So if I select all the monsters and click find, it'll like list them all out, so I can kind of get a kind of quick overview, quickly edit like a particular bit of data for all of the monsters at once, which is pretty nice. But it's super clunky, like it's not something I put heaps of time in. One of the really good things about I guess one of the good things about learning to make a tool is that the first time you make it, it takes a bit of time. It's a bit fiddly. You've got to like look at tutorials. You've got to try and find an example and fiddle with it and edit it to your needs. But then once you've done it a few times, it's very easy to copy and paste something and edit it and make it yours. So it's a good thing to learn how to do. And there's a lot of stuff that when we started on Crawl, I was like, oh, I don't want to spend time making tools and stuff. I want to be making the game. And so I didn't do tool stuff, and I kind of realized later, man, it would have made our lives much easier having nice tools for these. So I definitely recommend wherever you can, like working on tools. It's pretty fun as well. The last thing I'll show you, I guess, is a more complicated tool I made, which is, so instead of using the sprite animator I sort of had up before, which is kind of all clunky now, I've got a newer one that I built myself. It's this thing here called Power Sprite Animator, which you can purchase for $10 if you want on the asset store. And it's just uses Unity's default 2D animation stuff, but just gives you a nice editor, so you can kind of just select an animation and edit it without having to do this horrible database creation thing. And it's got some other nice features. So one thing that we do a lot, me and Barney, is I'll sort of add messages into the code, into the scripts, say like invincible on and invincible off, and let Barney put animation tags for when he wants that to happen in an animation. So this is a pretty simple example. I'll find a really complicated one here in Crawl to show you. Oh yeah, cool. How about spear combo 3? So yeah, okay. So we've got this animation here. It's like a little stabby thing. Stab, stab, stab. And like these green bits here are the animation tags. So the first one is anim input off, and that stops like the player's input, like basically freezes the character on the spot. Like, so if you're running forwards, it'll stop you because you've started doing your attack. Then it's got anim move stick with a parameter of 180, which lets the player move, which basically starts the character moving forward. So it's basically like he sticks out his spear and then he starts moving forward. And the word stick there is because you can kind of control it a bit. You've got a min and max with your stick. So if you're holding forward full, you'll do the full 180. Otherwise you do like degree less of that. And then anim attack is what will spawn the actual attack damage. And so there'll be like a few of them in here because he's doing 3 stabs. Anim run is when, like, after that point, if you're holding the stick, you'll just start your run animation. Otherwise you'll stay in that pose. a bit longer. Just ends up feeling. So a lot of that stuff is what makes game feel quite polished. So it's not kind of trying to hard code timers into things. And there is thousands of animations in the game. So so trying to like hard code timers or even have timers in the inspector rather than using anim tags would be a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, so this is just a slightly nicer way. You can see the names of the tags before you click on them. Double click to add new ones. So like attack or something. Attack 2 or attack 3. Yeah, another thing I've been experimenting. So I've kind of got into this tool stuff. I hadn't been doing it at the start of Crawl, but I really quite like it now. So like another thing I was doing for this basketball game is I added a system for placing nodes on a character. So say I want this purple node on his left hand, I can kind of just skip through, put it on his left hand, and then just read that in the script, which is kind of cool. So I might put that on the asset store soon as well, because that feature's not there yet. But that let us do cool stuff where we can like have a basketball sprite that bounces and stuff. It's pretty fun. So yeah, I think I'll like leave it there. I've rambled for ages. Oops. So yeah, this is a game jam game we just put out recently. I'll just show you that animation with the basketball. So there's a little guy bouncing. And game started. You can see like the ball like bouncing, which is all just done with those little nodes, and then like the dodge, that's the dodge roll I was doing. So it's got a sort of invincibility frames and stuff like that are done with animation tags. Anyway, okay, I rambled plenty enough, so I'll leave it there. I'll try and put a few little info tidbits in the description, and yeah, see you later. Bye.